At night, from across the Dubai Marina Canal, you can read a building's financial statements with your own eyes. It stands a staggering 632 meters tall, 128 floors of gleaming glass and steel slicing into the desert sky, the second tallest building on Earth. And for years after its grand opening, when the sun went down over the Arabian Gulf, entire bands of that megatower simply went music dark. Floor after floor after floor. No lights, no tenants, no revenue. This is an architectural marvel that cost $2.4 billion to construct. A mega project backed directly by a massive state-owned development consortium in one of the wealthiest cities on the planet. A building that won nearly every engineering music award in existence. Yet, it could not do the one single thing every commercial real estate project is built to do: fill itself with paying music tenants. To understand how this desert icon failed, you have to understand what it was supposed to music-prove to the global financial markets. Go back to the early 1990s. The area now known as downtown and the marina was largely open sand, low-rise structures, and coastal ports. Then came the historic economic reforms, and with them, a hyper-ambitious master plan. This coastline would become the Middle East's answer to Wall Street and Manhattan combined. And at the absolute center of that master plan sat a premier reserved plot of land, set aside for a super-tall tower that would announce the region's definitive financial arrival to the world. It was a project designed to overshadow everything before it. But here is the first entry in our file, because it matters who builds a project like this. This tower was not built by a private developer betting its own capital. It was developed by a massive consortium of state-backed enterprises, with funding flowing primarily from municipal investment funds. Construction started in 2008. The structure topped out in 2015 and opened to the public in 2016. Remember that funding structure, because when we get to the losses, you're going to want to know whose money actually evaporated. And the answer, ultimately, is the public's. Let me be clear about something up front, because this channel deals in verified facts, not cheap music shots. As a piece of engineering, this tower is genuinely remarkable. The design, led by a global architecture firm with top international engineers heading the team, twists the building roughly 120 degrees from base to crown. That twist isn't decoration. The coast of Dubai faces fierce desert winds and shamels, and this rotated form sheds wind loads perfectly, cutting the structural steel the project needed and saving a reported tens of millions of dollars in materials. Furthermore, the building wears two layers of glass, an outer skin wrapped around an inner one, creating deep atrium buffer zones. In a region where summer temperatures routinely breach 45 degrees Celsius, this acts like a massive thermos, insulating the tower against the brutal desert heat. Wind turbines near the crown generate supplemental power. Condensate and rainwater get captured and recycled. The elevators were, at opening, the fastest on the planet. The observation deck set a world record. The building earned LEED Platinum certification, the kind of green credential that, in theory, lets a landlord charge premium rents. On paper, every box was checked. Records up and down the spec sheet. So, here's the question this file actually has to answer. If the engineering was world-class, how did the business fail this badly? Drop your theory in the comments right now before we get into the numbers, because I want to know how many of you see the answer coming. It opened in 2016. By mid-2017, a full year after opening, reporting indicated that only around 60% of the office space had even been leased. And of those tenants who had signed, only about a third had actually moved in. Read that again. A year into operation, the second tallest building on Earth had entire floors sitting empty, leased on paper, vacant in reality. The international corporations the tower was designed to attract, the multinational banks and global firms that fill skyscrapers in London and New York, largely stayed away. The financial consequences were brutal, with revenue trickling in and operating costs running at full scale because you cannot heat, cool, secure, and maintain half of a 600-meter tower in the Arabian heat. Reported losses pushed the project more than $1.5 billion into debt. What kept the tenants out? The file shows 3 distinct failures, and each one has a paper trail. The first failure is bureaucratic. and it's the one glossy architecture magazines almost never mention. For years after opening, the tower struggled to obtain its complete fire safety and civil defense certifications from local authorities. Officials raised concerns tied to the building's extreme height and complex double-skin design, because evacuating a 128-story tower is a genuinely hard problem, and the approval process dragged on and on. Now, think about what that means if you're a multinational corporation's real estate director. Your legal department asks one question: does the building have full fire certification? And for years, the honest answer was not yet. No Fortune 500 general counsel on earth signs a lease under those conditions. The second failure is built into the glass itself. Remember that elegant, twisting double-skin facade? The one that beat the desert wind loads? It came with a structural cost the renderings never showed. The gap between the outer skin and the inner building, combined with the curved geometry of the floors, produced floor plates with enormous amounts of dead zone that tenants could not actually use. Inspections of the building found that on many levels, only about half the floor area could be used efficiently. But commercial leases do not work on usable space alone. Tenants were effectively being asked to pay premium tower rents on square meters of dead zone, sweeping curved voids between the window line and the workable office. I want you to sit with that number: 50% efficiency on some of the most expensive commercial floor plates in the region. The third failure is timing and pricing into the teeth of a softening market. The tower opened just as commercial occupancy rates across Dubai's business districts were sliding due to a massive injection of new supply, and corporate tenants were hunting for bargains. The tower's response was to hold out for premium rents, justified by its records and its green certification. The market's response was silence. No private developer answering to private shareholders could build a tower this expensive, lease it this slowly, and survive. The only reason it could absorb $1.5 billion in losses is that the entity behind it was never subject to the market test in the first place. It built a monument first and asked who would pay rent second. And then there's the crown of the building, the part of this story that became almost a symbol of the whole project. The tower's upper floors were always reserved for an ultra-luxury flagship hotel, operated by a major state-backed hospitality group. It was boldly announced to the media as the highest luxury hotel in the world. And then, for roughly 5 years after the tower opened, it simply did not open. Year after year, the summit of the second tallest building on the planet sat dark and unfinished. The luxury hotel finally welcomed its first guests in June 2021, 5 years late, featuring an ultra-exclusive restaurant on the 120th floor, billed as the highest dining experience in any building on Earth. But behind the scenes, away from the glittering launch parties, the engineering team was fighting a silent war against the desert itself. Our file includes personal accounts from project engineers and maintenance contractors who worked the graveyard shifts in Business Bay and the marina. They describe a nightmare of material physics. In Dubai, the ambient summer heat regularly surpassed 45 degrees Celsius, causing the massive steel frame and the outer glass panels to expand significantly during the day. But at night, as the desert cools, the building contracts. This relentless diurnal thermal cycling puts immense stress on the structural sealants. By 2020, before the hotel even opened, water leaks broke out inside the tower. It started on the upper mechanical floors, where high-pressure plumbing systems struggled with the extreme vertical lift. When a primary seal failed, gravity took over. Reports describe water cascading down dozens of floors, soaking through false ceilings, ruining expensive office equipment, and shorting out electrical risers along the way. Maintenance crews spoke of working 14-hour shifts just to contain the spread. The operator quickly issued press statements saying the issue was fully repaired and safety inspections were conducted. But for a super tall tower already fighting a severe reputation problem in the local business community, images of water pouring through a $2.4 billion global landmark circulated rapidly on WhatsApp and social media, doing exactly the damage you'd expect. International legal departments and expat managing directors looked at the videos, looked at their open lease options in lower rise, proven business parks, and quietly walked away. The architectural marvel had become a logistical liability. So let's close the file and state the finding plainly. This tower did not fail as a structure. It stands, it twists, it survives the desert winds. As a feat of engineering, it may be one of the great achievements of the century. It failed as a business, and it failed in ways that were visible on paper before the first foundation pile was driven into the sand. Floor plates that wasted half their area, a certification process the builder's own government couldn't expedite, premium pricing into a falling market, a flagship hotel 5 years late, and behind all of it, a funding model where the people writing the checks were never the people who had to answer for the returns. The tower was built to be a monument to economic strength and regional ambition. What the record shows instead is a monument to what happens when prestige drives the pro forma, when a building exists to make a statement first and money second. Here's my question for you, and I genuinely want the comment section's verdict on this one. Is this tower a failure, or is this national landmark allowed to lose money the way a museum or a monument does? Was this ever really a commercial building at all? Make your case below. The best arguments from this comment section shape which file we open next. If institutional failures hidden inside iconic buildings is your kind of story, the file on 4-2 Park Avenue is already open on this channel. A tower with the opposite problem, fully sold and allegedly falling apart. Every collapse has a cost. Every cost has a record. We open the file.